were pushed into latrine facilities and raped in there.
I was harassed, I was assaulted, and I was raped.
And that's when one of them started to do stuff.
I was raped and assaulted repeatedly my freshman year by a superior cadet in my squadron.
There's nothing stronger than the U.S. Army, because there is nothing stronger than a U.S. Army soldier.
The Army continues to try to attract new female recruits, but by joining the U.S. military, are women putting themselves at risk of sexual harassment, assault, or even rape by their male colleagues?
As a woman in that situation, he took my trust, he took my respect, and he made me ashamed to be a soldier with him. He made me feel like I was an object. He made it uncomfortable to even go to work.
I guess the difference between a joke and harassment is, you know, would you say it to your mother or your sister? If you wouldn't say it to either of those people and they wouldn't laugh, if they would laugh about it, then it's probably a joke. If you wouldn't say it to them because you think it's too disgusting and gross, then it's probably harassment. It's probably inappropriate.
Abby is currently on medical leave from the Army and studying in London. She joined in 2000 for a variety of reasons, aged just 17.
I enlisted kind of with this idealistic notion to give back something. It was also a way for me to pay for college. It was also kind of a way as being like the middle child for me to rebel. I really liked, you know, being able to do the stuff that the guys could do, you know, as well as the guys could do, sometimes if not better. And I really thought that I was one of those quote-unquote lifers, the people that would start off at a young age and stay in it until retirement.
Jessica received her military discharge last year. She was an enthusiastic recruit from a military family.
It was important for me to be a soldier was because I was very patriotic. I wanted to serve and repay my country for allowing as many freedoms as I enjoy. My brother and my father both served. Well, not to sound cocky, but I know I was a good soldier. I know it. Because I had great PT scores. I had the leadership qualities that they were looking for. I had, basically I was the ideal soldier, except I wasn't the right sex.
Abby's service began on a humanitarian mission in Nicaragua. 2 weeks after arriving, she alleges she was sexually assaulted.
These two officers said that they would walk me back to where I was sleeping, and I mean, it's just stupid. I feel stupid about the whole thing, even now, looking back on it. Like, I knew something just didn't feel right, and I'd been drinking and all that kind of stuff, but they started walking me down towards my section of the camp, and we ended up on the water bags that held the water supply for the camp, and that's when one of them started to do stuff. I mean, I think that's an important part, is the fact that they're both freaking officers. I mean, that is like a huge part to the stories, because that's why I didn't do anything.
Having completed basic training, Jessica left for a posting in Korea in April 2006. 3 weeks into her deployment, she was sexually assaulted by an officer.
I was invited to drop a movie off with a fellow soldier, and I had no intentions of walking in the room nor staying, and I dropped the movie off with intentions to walk right out of the room. I was invited to stay, so being polite, I did, and in the process, I was attacked, and I learned via the fight or flight reflex, I could not figure out exactly and as quick as I wanted to how to get out of there, but I did manage to get out of there and go back to my room, where he proceeded to, pound on my door for 45 minutes. He made a statement and I made a statement.
The army investigated and found the offence had occurred as alleged. He was demoted, but remains a serving soldier. How typical are Abby and Jessica's experiences? Janice Kapinski, one of the most senior female soldiers in the history of the US military, became a public figure following her role in the Abu Ghraib scandal. Now released from the army, she claims that harassment is far more widespread than any serving soldier will admit.
I would say that sexual harassment is endemic in the military today. Peacetime units, wartime, traveling in between, temporary duty, whatever it might be. It's just an unfortunate fact of life for women who are serving in the armed forces now.
So sexual assault meetings happen all the time, but they're not taken seriously. And, people go out from those meetings and maybe they'll remember it for a day or 2 days or 3 days. But next month at drill, it's the same old stuff. And it's the same old good old boys sitting in that office day in and day out, and they're not doing anything to uproot the people that are in charge.
You can't be female in a boys' club. It's just impossible, And every rule that we used as females to try to get by that is very, very easily used against us. For example, if you be one of the guys, you are you act like one of the guys, then you can't complain about one of the guys if he goes too far.
Despite feeling isolated and even physically threatened, Jessica attempted to continue her military career following the assault. She alleges that 5 weeks later, the one male soldier on the base she trusted raped her.
I did feel he was a friend. I was safe. We had discussions. He knew I was, off limits, as it were. We were watching a movie. He was drinking. I couldn't tell you how much he was drinking or whatever. Or I don't even think I could tell you what he was drinking. But in the flash, he was, basically he was on top of me, and that was it. And then I couldn't tell you any more details from there until I left, going, what happened? So I get back, I want a shower, and I just, basically stayed wide-eyed for a good couple days, just kind of going, what happened? Replaying as much as I could, over and over and over. Who do I report? What do I say? Who did what? Did I say yes? No. I'm not drunk. I'm not this. I'm not, what? Again, I'm playing every scenario backwards and forwards, everything said, everything not said, everything thought, just over and over in my head, not understanding what happened, why it happened, what could have been different, and what do I do now?
She eventually came to a decision, and the alleged rape was reported. Al Jazeera can reveal that despite Jessica's commander specifically stating an investigation was ongoing, no investigation has ever taken place. Women currently make up 15% of US soldiers on active duty. In Iraq, more women are serving in combat support roles than any previous conflict. For some, this has meant facing dangers on both sides of the wire.
For units serving in Iraq, women were subjected to a rule where they never walked anywhere unaccompanied. They had to walk with another soldier, whether it was to the latrine, to the shower points, to the mess hall, to their vehicle. They never walked alone. So somebody, whoever established that rule, clearly recognized that there was a threat of some kind.
Throughout my deployment, I traveled all over Iraq. And so some bases actually posed more of a threat of sexual assault than others. There was one base in particular that we were put out in briefings that we were not to be alone. Whether it be to go to the porta-johns or whatever, grab a buddy and stay with your buddy at all times.
They were pushed into latrine facilities and raped in there. They were pushed outside of the shower point. And this is in the middle, and commanders use this as a ridiculous excuse. This is in the middle of a combat zone. We have bigger things that we need to be concerned with. The policies affecting women, they're going to have to find their own way.
People were reportedly getting raped in Kuwait at a rather high rate, and because of the generators that were always on, and they were so loud, it would drown out people yelling. So you couldn't hear if someone was being raped, and if they were to scream, you wouldn't be able to hear it.
Janice Kapinski claims she raised the issue of female safety with the commanding officer of one of the Kuwait bases.
I went to the commander and I said, you need to plaster this place with warnings about what action is going to be taken if any of these things are reported and found to be accurate. He said, no, I don't want to call attention to the problem. Soldiers will be soldiers.
They can put that in their hip pocket.
In Part 2, we'll ask the Army what it has done to reduce levels of assault and rape.
We have implemented this very comprehensive policy in regard to sexual assault, and they're going to be required to attend training. They have commanders that are trained on this program.
And we'll hear the testimony that left this congressman in shock.
I was raped and assaulted repeatedly my freshman year by a superior cadet in my squadron. In earlier sexual assault briefings during my basic cadet training, upper-class women cadets informed us that it was very likely that we would be raped.
It's very unfortunate that women have to consider the, not possibility, but they have to factor into their decision the probability of being sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, or raped because they choose to serve.
Former Brigadier General Janice Kapinski believes levels of sexual violence against women in the Army are running at endemic levels. However, the Army are satisfied that new policies implemented since 2005 have created a safe working environment for women.
They can put that in their hip pocket, and this tells them all about our program. It's a wonderful tool. Sometimes our soldiers don't understand, and they cross the line when it comes to sexual assault, because there is a difference between sexual assault and sexual harassment. And so it's an annual requirement that our soldiers receive that training. In addition, our commanders, as soon as they assume those positions, they're required within 45 days to receive a briefing on the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Program.
Abby, who alleges she was sexually assaulted by an officer, remains unconvinced.
I've been to the military's sexual harassment and sexual assault debriefings and briefings that you have to have. I think you have to have them quarterly or something like that. Let's say my first time in it, I think people actually slap people on the ass and ask them, do you feel sexually assaulted? I mean, they were such a joke that people came out from watching a video and then would go and do what they saw on the video. It was just a joke.
According to the military's own statistics, which record only incidents reported within the chain of command, the average servicewoman's risk of being sexually assaulted or raped during the course of her career is 6%. However, these figures don't account for those who haven't reported attacks to their command.
Women are intimidated by the reporting process. Women are reluctant to report because they become the target. They're ostracized, they're chastised, they're degraded.
Abby was one of those women who didn't report her alleged assault.
I think a lot of different reasons for not coming forward. I think the main one was just that I was so far low in the totem pole for the military, and really I didn't know what the process was for it. It wasn't, I mean, it maybe crossed my mind for 2 seconds, but I really just didn't know what to do. I think I was just more in shock that it even happened, just because I was so idealistic.
My sense about women reporting infractions, sexual harassment, sexual assaults, rape, my sense is that it's the tip of the iceberg, actually getting through the system.
The US Army admits that rates of sexual assault and rape are underreported, but they argue that this is a national problem, not specifically a military one.
The most important thing we need to remember is sexual assault is the most underreported crime in America. And so whether you go in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, sexual assault is within our society.
However, numerous independent studies have found the Department of Defense's statistics to be unreliable. These studies are based on information from other government organizations, such as the Veterans Affairs Department, which gathers data in confidence from retired female soldiers. Sexual assault or rape, 33%. Rape, 30%. Rape, 28%. Sexual assault or rape, 33%. These figures suggest that levels of underreporting in the military are far higher than in civilian life. Janice Kapinski now believes that the military need to hand responsibility for reporting and investigating sexual violence to a civilian body.
Certainly one of the most effective means of responding to this problem, growing problem of sexual harassment and rapes and violations against women, would be to turn that responsibility over to a civilian organization who has the trained individuals to look into this. It doesn't make any difference. Rape is rape.
And the tide may be starting to turn. On June the 27th last year, a powerful congressional subcommittee heard, for the first time, testimony from a victim.
I was raped and assaulted repeatedly my freshman year by a superior cadet in my squadron. In earlier sexual assault briefings during my basic cadet training, upper-class women cadets informed us that it was very likely that we would be raped. As my world and everything I believed in crumbled before me, I realized I was being castigated and thrown out of the academy for reporting the heinous crimes. To my shock and dismay, the demerits were for sex in the dorms, because my rapes took place in the dormitories. Fraternization, because my rapist was an upperclassman. He was buying alcohol from my classmates.
The visibly stunned members of Congress wanted answers from the author of the Department of Defense's latest report on sexual violence.
Do you feel that this report adequately describes the problem? I'm just not sure it begins to capture. I mean, you basically had brutality take place. You basically have testimony that all the women, or almost all, were saying you will be raped and you got to just deal with it. Do you think this report captured?
No.
Yeah. See, I'm not even sure it came close.
And it really didn't. It really didn't.
I was not prepared for your testimony.
Beth Davis was raped in 1999, prior to the new legislation being introduced in 2005. Jessica claims she was raped in 2006. Jessica's rape was reported unrestricted. This means she named her assailant, and the Army was provided with an account of what happened. Under the new guidelines, the Army was duty-bound to investigate those allegations. Furthermore, in a response to a formal inquiry from Jessica's congressman dated the 15th of August 2006, the Army stated an investigation was already underway. However, on the 28th of February 2007, in an email to Jessica, the Army admitted that in fact it had never even started an investigation.
When it came down to reporting, they said, well, you should drop names, you should tell, the details, because otherwise he'll do it again. He's open to doing it again now. He's more than able and most likely willing to do it again. Next time he just might pick a more vulnerable person who won't report at all.
Kathleen Dugnan has acted as both prosecutor and defender at military tribunals. For her, the legal changes have done little to force reluctant commanders to investigate claims of sexual violence.
The new law essentially defines offenses in a slightly different way, but it doesn't really change the system as far as how the offenses are handled.
Especially since the Department of the Army said that they were going to do this in writing, and I was led to believe that they were going to be pursued by my command, that it's a huge betrayal, a huge letdown. And I'm like, so I'm not looking over your shoulder so you won't do the right thing?
If the perpetrator is someone who's useful to his unit or useful to the military, he may have more support from his chain of command than someone who was perhaps not as useful to the military. And those types of commanders' decisions are not changed by the new law.
The Army maintains it has complete confidence in its commanders to make decisions on sexual assault and rape cases.
The Army leadership is very satisfied, and we have a lot of faith in our commanders to do the right things as they conduct their investigations on sexual assault.
The Army continues to invest millions of dollars in recruitment. Should women considering joining the Army be concerned about sexual violence in the ranks? The answer depends on who you ask.
I think that women should have the opportunity to serve in the military, and it's very unfortunate that women have to consider the not possibility, but they have to factor into their decision the probability of being sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, or raped because they choose to serve.
We have implemented this very comprehensive policy in regard to sexual assault, and they're going to be required to attend training. They have commanders that are trained on this program, and the incidents of sexual assault, they may be on the rise, but that's because of emphasis and on the program and the emphasis that we're placing on the training. So there is no reason why our new recruits should not feel as though the Army is not a place in which they want to work.
Would you now personally feel comfortable recommending to a young woman that she pursue education at a service academy?
Absolutely, absolutely not. We're still hearing cases of women coming out of the academies absolutely distraught and, having been through the exact same thing that I went through. But the media doesn't seem to get a hold of them. And I'm sure it's because the cover-up is just so fine-tuned.
While both Abby and Jessica are slowly building new lives, they remain deeply scarred by their treatment in the military.
Before I left, I always used to just be the life of the party and have lots of fun and whatever. And then I started drinking more. And when I drank, I become really emotional. So then I became like the sad drunk in the corner at the party. And I was only 21, 22.
My Army that I was willing to die for just let me down in the biggest way possible. I mean, it probably would have been better if I died in Iraq because at least I'd get a nice funeral.